On today's edition of Cronkite Sports Live, ASU baseball's bats have been silent lately. What did the Devils need to do to wake them up? We'll have highlights and more.
ASU wrestling is in action at the NCAA championships. We'll have an update on how the Sun Devil grapplers have added to the legacy of legends that have come before them.
And Kenny Dillingham and Sun Devil football are getting set for spring practice this upcoming week. We'll get you set up to speed with everything you need to know as ASU enters its first season in the Big 12. All this and more on a fresh CSL. Hello, everyone, and welcome inside our downtown Phoenix studio. Riley Swenson and Blake Neiman. Pleasure to be joining you. And Riley, I mean, it's only a couple days in, but my bracket's already busted. How about you?
Oh, yeah, no, not good. I had Auburn and Kentucky both to the Final Four, so I guess you could say I don't know ball.
Hey, you know what's also broken? ASU baseball bats.
Yeah, you could say that for sure, but let's jump right into some highlights to see what exactly went on with those bats. Early on this week, they took on Utah Valley. They had a win on Tuesday against them, going for the midweek sweep on Wednesday. But Utah Valley, they had some fight in them on a Wednesday afternoon. Top half of the second innings where he picked this thing up. And Nate Bach, you can kiss that one goodbye. He touches them all. Goes deep to center field off Wyatt Halverson. Gives the Wolverines a 1-0 lead and the first score of the ballgame. All the way now in the top of the seventh, Bach is back at it. Laces one through the left side. Not a home run, but he gets 2 RBIs this time. It would eventually be 5-0 Utah Valley. And the Sun Devils didn't have a hit until the bottom of the seventh when Jacob Tobias stepped up and hits a double into left field. It would get all the way to the wall, and he would glide in safely standing up, but the Devils needed a push. So they went to the bench and some pinch hitters, the first of which being Kien Vu. He gets a nice friendly hop at the home cooking stadium. Into right field it goes. 2 runs come home. And that will be just the start of the bottom of the seventh for the run-scoring Devils. As Nick McLean, another pinch hitter, comes up. He grounds out to second, but the run does come home. So it's an RBI for McLean, and the Devils cut it down to 5-4. But the back end of the bullpen just could not hold up. Ben Jacobs came in, and he got touched up just a little bit. You can see the home runs were being hit left and right. He gave up 2 solo shots in the top of the ninth. And the Sun Devils fall to below 500 as they just didn't have enough in the tank. They lose 7-5. Willie, what in the world is going on?
I'm quite frankly at a loss. We've given the, it comes down to coaching. I take the responsibility for it. But at the end of the day, we feel like we're giving these guys the information they need. We just aren't getting it done.
So while Willie Bloomquist is at a loss of trying to figure out the Sun Devil offense, ASU's pitching has surprisingly been able to take a little bit of shape. And for more on that, we bring in our own WCSN baseball reporter, Andres Armenta. And Andres, we've seen the 2 Friday night and Saturday starters in Connor Markle and Thomas Burns. They have been lights out for ASU. What has been able to separate those two from the rest of the pack?
Yeah, 100%. Well, the true freshman Thomas Burns continues to prove why he's that Friday night starter. In his most recent outing versus the U of A, threw 100 pitches through a career-long 7 innings. And something important to take away from the game is that he worked himself out of jams he put himself in with walks. Prior to his outing out in Tucson, he had 15 combined walks, resulting in 7 earned runs, but 5 versus the Wildcats with only 1 earned run. Another positive sign was his growth in confidence and relationship with Bloomquist. After he went out to the mound, talking to him in the 7th, with a runner on first and 2 outs, and Burns basically said, "Look, coach, I know I can get the next runner out. Trust me," and he did exactly that. And the second solidified starter, Connor Markle, came back with his best career start after having a weekend off to deal with tricep tendonitis. Markle also had a career-long outing with 6 innings and was just 2 shy of his career best in strikeouts with 8 on the night. His start led ASU to their first shutout over the U of A since 2014, and of course earned himself Pac-12 Pitcher of the Week honors.
So the Sun Devils have a portion of their starting pitching figured out, and they've also been able to get a duo out of the bullpen who have been very reliable in Ben Jacobs and, of course, Ryan Schieffer.
Yeah, totally, Ben. Well, one of the options for Bloomquist out of the pen has really been since the start of the season, Ryan Schieffer. Simply put, he's been cold-blooded, looking unbothered in any situation put into, and told the media with a shoulder shrug that, yeah, I don't really care where I go in. I'm just trying to do my part to help the team win. Schiefer's pitching has reflected that with a ridiculously low 1.02 ERA and opponent average under 100. This past week, Schiefer came out of the pen twice versus the Wildcats and Utah Valley, pitching 5 innings, giving up 1 hit, and still keeping his no earned runs of the month of March alive. The second best option is the sophomore transfer arm Ben Jacobs. Jacobs has been a pretty good month of March for himself. His only hiccup came in that midweek series loss versus Utah Valley, where he gave up 2 home runs, making up the only earned runs this month for him. And it's cause for a slight bit of concern for Bloomquist and the pitching staff, but really nothing to dwell over as he's been spotless outside of that.
We talked about the bright spots in ASU pitching, but we know no pitching staff is perfect, and ASU is far from it. So as we look ahead, we've seen some shuffles around in the Sunday spots so far this season. So what are we looking for in some of these other arms that can be able to step off after their recent performances?
Yeah, well, after being shuffled out of that Sunday spot, Blake Tyler Meyer made his return to the mound last Tuesday versus Utah Valley. Meyer's struggles continued, though, in his command of his fastball, forcing him to exit the game with only 3 2/3 pitch and giving up 4 earned runs. Now, on the bright side, Hunter Omelet came in place of him, and after having struggled versus the U of A, came back in a nice way, going 5 innings with plenty of strikeouts, 11. And if struggles continue for Meyer and Behrens, who started on the mound versus U of A in their loss to the Wildcats, Omelet could be one of the names high on the list for Bloomquist to try out on a Sunday bump. But outside of that, concerns still loom in the back of the bullpen with the likes of Cole Carlone and Sean Fitzpatrick, who looked promising to start the season to go out for an inning or 2, but in each of their last 2 outings, they have combined for 10 earned runs. And really, Blake, for Bloomquist, these concerns unfortunately aren't new, as it's been a pressing question since before the season even started. Finding the pulse and the placement of the pitching staff has been a struggle. And if you want to take that out of the picture, if you look at their starting pitchers, if you only have 2, it's going to be difficult once you get to the tourney time and then Omaha, where realistically you want to be able to have 4 arms that can give you 5 solid innings. And well, right now, any dreams to go to Omaha are seeming like a fantasy for ASU baseball if they can't figure out their pitching.
Thanks so much for your insight, Andres. ASU leading Washington State currently 2-0 in the bottom of the first.
Well, I think guys are starting to understand that you have to have that accountability factor, and there was a couple things said after today's game that'll remain in that clubhouse that were said to each other, which is good. I have no problem with that, and I think if we can take one thing away from this weekend is the guys played with an edge all weekend long, and that showed. We didn't give in.
ASU had lofty expectations for its offense coming into this season, yet in recent weeks the Diamond Devils have been underwhelming at the dish, especially against their rivals from down south. They cashed in only 6 of 35 times with runners in scoring position and stranded 25 total base runners. For a program built on its bats, it's time for someone in the clubhouse to step up and say something. Here's Gabby Chernoff to tell us more.
A second-place finish at the College World Series. A winner-nothing mentality that every player in the clubhouse cherished. ASU baseball head coach Willie Bloomquist looks back fondly on his days as a player when he was a part of the 1998 squad that held each other to such a high standard that allowed it to reach Omaha. Nearly 3 decades later, Bloomquist recognizes the team he coaches now might not have those same characteristics just yet. The effort to hold each other accountable, to show up every day and compete, at times is absent. Many players consistently stress the confidence they have in their lineup, but when it comes to executing, they aren't always able to make a team effort to push each other home. Case in point came in their series loss to Oregon to open up Pac-12 play. The Sun Devils launched 8 home runs, yet not one was a multi-run homer. In that same series, ASU went 3 for 29 with runners in scoring position, leaving on 26. And even then, the consensus seems to be that when they step up to the plate, they aren't trying to be that guy who gets the big play. Is it maybe time to want to be? There's only so much Willie Bloomquist can do to try and answer that question. At the end of the day, you want to rack up the wins to make a run at the postseason, and Bloomquist says they're close to making that first part click. The final piece of the puzzle could be that blood and guts winner mentality, as he put it, that the players have to adopt themselves and then hold each other accountable for on and off the field. although there have been efforts, that hasn't been happening up to this point. Following ASU's most recent loss against the now 8-13 Utah Valley Wolverines, the players took it upon themselves to hold a players-only meeting. This may be a step in the right direction, but the result of their upcoming series at Washington State will have major implications on its new direction the rest of the season. For Cronkite Sports, I'm Gabby Chernoff.
From one diamond to another, some major news broke this week from the softball team, thanks to our very own Jake Sloan. Yaya Acuna has been ruled out for the season with an undisclosed injury, and the team, they currently sit at 17-11, and now they lose a key piece in the outfield. But to talk some more softball, we now bring in WCSN softball reporter Grace Johnson. And Grace, Acuna was injured in a series against Oregon State last weekend on Friday night, where they eventually lost 2 of 3 to the Beavers. What went wrong in that series?
Yeah, that was such a painful series to lose, Riley, because it was such a winnable series for ASU. Going into the weekend, the Beavers were batting .228, which was last in conference. And the reason why they were able to come away with the series wins is because they took advantage in high-pressure circumstances. Game 1, it was tied in the 7th, but the Sun Devils surrendered to pressure and gave up 2 runs. And then a similar situation in Game 2, Mac Osborne was just about to shut the door on the Beavers. They were 1 out away, but the pressure just got to her. Head coach Megan Bartlett said that when Osborne is on, she has some of the best curve in the country, but the pressure can definitely mess with that. And that's why pitch selection and execution are just so important, and especially in high pressure circumstances. Then you just need to settle down, know your batter, how to attack with your pitches, and execute in big moments.
It wasn't all bad, though. They were able to avoid the sweep of the 5-1 victory on Sunday. So what were some, I guess, the bright spots that they can possibly take away from overall a disappointing weekend?
Yeah, definitely. I think some bright spots were definitely the freshmen on the roster. You know, with the loss of Acuna, that's going to be detrimental to both the offense and defense, but Jada Lewis was given an opportunity to step up, and she performed out in the outfield. And then you had freshman Libby Walsh, Samantha Swan. They both had home runs on the weekend, and it's just great for Bartlett to have these freshmen she can call on up the bench and for them to perform. And there's been a lot of pitching woes lately, but Marissa Schuld was able to pitch her second complete game in conference play, and that's just huge because you can get an arm to go out there, throw all 7 innings when you have such a shallow bullpen.
And now a couple of Pac-12 series under their belt. They're really getting to the heart of conference play, and really what's one of the best conferences in the country, one of the best Pac-12s that we've seen in the final season of it being the Pac-12. What do they have to do to be able to compete weekend in, weekend out?
I mean, staying healthy is just so crucial right now. Your pitching rotation is so banged up. You have Kenzie Brown, she's out for the season. You have Kylie McGee battling a wrist injury, and you have Marissa Schuld, who's just day-to-day with her health conditions. So it's just really on the offense to step up, go above and beyond expectations, and take that pressure off your pitchers, and not up to the freshmen, but other newcomers such as transfers to start making their mark in Tempe. You have Tanya Windle. She had 9 hits, 3 doubles, and 5 RBIs this weekend. She's just continuing to stay hot. And then you have Alizia Demby, who's batting just below 300, another great addition that Bartlett picked up. She was hot at the beginning of the season. Now she's cooled off a little bit. And then you have Kelsey Hall, who's such a leader in the dugout. She's such a big inspiration. She can get her team hype. She's performing a little bit, not up to full expectations, but when she gets there, that'll be great for her offense. And Riley, like you said, the Pac-12 is just so competitive and arguably second best in the country. But that just means the Sun Devils, they can't take any game for granted, and they're going to have to learn from their mistakes fast if they want to compete. And they also, like you mentioned, all the injuries, they have to learn to play with them because the game of softball right now is just so big.
All right, Grace, as always, thanks for coming in and for the insight. ASU heads up to Eugene this weekend to take on the Oregon Ducks. First pitch is set for 5 p.m. this evening.
As we speak, ASU Wrestling is competing at the NCAA Championships in Kansas City. The Sun Devils have been stellar thus far, advancing 4 wrestlers to tonight's semifinals, including 125-pounder Richard Figueroa, Kyle Parco, and Ja'Cory Teemer at 149 and 57, and then, of course, world-class heavyweight Colton Schultz at heavyweight. So how did these grapplers get here, and what now stands between them and the top of the podium? Let's break it down with some bracketology. Starting it off at 125 with number 8 seed Richard Figueroa. Came into NCAAs on a sizzling 5-match win streak, and he continued that into the national stage, knocking off number 1 Braden Davis from Penn State earlier this morning, and he now squares off in the semis against fellow first-time All-American Drake Ayala of Iowa this evening. Now to one of 149's best. Kyle Parko, the steady presence for ASU, defeated Chance Slamer in a rematch of their Pac-12 championship last week to move on to the semis, where he will face Michigan's Austin Gomez. If he can get past Gomez in the semis, he will likely get a rematch in the national finals with number 1 Ridge Lovett, who only loss came to Parko earlier this season. Then right after Parko follows up at 157. Ja'Cory Teamer has been stellar. A 4-time All-American, has a promising path to the finals as he'll get a rematch with Daniel Cardenas, a man who has beat in both dual and in the Pac-12 championship competition. And then, of course, Colton Schultz. He goes without saying, a world-class heavyweight who has goals at the Olympics, but of course he's going to try and take care of business in the NCAA championships and try and get back to that national finals where he once was before. And while all these wrestlers may be chasing their individual championships, that team title is still within ASU's reach. They currently sit second in the team standings behind Penn State. And of course, Zeke Jones and the rest of the squad, that ultimate goal is that team title at the end of the day.
Well, as Blake just mentioned, another season is coming to its end on the wrestling mat, meaning the end of another great Pac-12 sport, with the Devils moving on after this season. You can see right there on that graphic the amount of success they've had in that conference. To give us a look back on the history of ASU wrestling in the Pac-12, we give it to Crawford McKinstry, who dives into the vault.
NCAAs are underway, and the Pac-12 champion Sun Devils look to show out for the conference on the national stage one last time. So let's take a look back at some of the best wrestlers to win it all for the maroon and gold. ASU's most recent national champion was Zahid Valencia, a 3-time All-American and Pac-12 Wrestler of the Year at 174. Over a 3-season stretch, Valencia notched 97 wins and lost only 3 times. Valencia also took home back-to-back national titles in 2018 and 19, both coming in huge wins against Penn State juggernaut Mark Hall. In his only season at ASU in 2011, Bubba Jenkins had an insane tournament run en route to a national championship at 157. The 4-seeded former Nittany Lion found himself up against undefeated David Taylor, a teammate he had worked out with the prior offseason before transferring to ASU. While down 1-0, Jenkins flipped the script and pinned Taylor, winning the Natty versus his old team. ASU didn't have just one national champion in 2011, but 2, as the awe-inspiring Anthony Robles won the title at 125 despite being born without his right leg. Robles dominated during his time at ASU, tallying a school record 47 tech falls. Robles rarely kept a match close, and the championship was no different as he defeated Iowa's defending NCAA champion Matt McDonough 7-1. The Arizona State greats that came before have paved the way for the championship culture of today's Sun Devils, so we'll see if ASU wrestling can continue their winning legacy for the last time as a Pac-12 team. For Cronkite Sports, I'm Crawford McKinstry.
Coming off a dominant 17-9 victory in its Pac-12 opener, ASU lacrosse looks to keep the momentum moving into the most challenging matchup left on its schedule against number 17 USC. For more on this tough test tomorrow in Tempe, we check in with Aiden O'Neill at Sun Devil Lacrosse Stadium.
In just under 24 hours, Arizona State Lacrosse will host number 17 USC right here in Tempe. ASU is coming off a huge first Pac-12 victory, 17-9 over San Diego State, but Saturday's competition possesses a different animal. The Trojans have dominated Arizona State historically, leading 11-2 in the all-time matchup, with 5 of those wins coming in Tempe. The recipe for success for Arizona State has been scoring early and scoring often, with all 5 of their wins tallying double-digit in the scoring column. Coach Vanderthoff and the rest of the squad are seeking their first ranked victory of the season, being 0-3 in that category up to this point. Saturday's contest will be an amazing benchmark for the Sun Devils to see where they stand with one of the best teams in the country. Guys,
Over now to gymnastics, where ASU is coming down to the end of the season. Take a look at the postseason seeding systems, and I'm being told by the powers that be to not even try to explain it. You can try and figure it out for yourself. I know there's a lot of weird math going on there. Carry the 2, cross out the 3. Who really knows? But it's all explained in there, I can promise you. But to break down the dominating performance that Arizona State just had from a numerical standpoint, here is Marina Williams with By the Numbers.
The Gym Devils capped off their regular season with a season-high 197.6 against Southern Connecticut last Friday. Together, ASU scored above a 49 on every event for the 9th meet in a row. The Sun Devils' 49.55 on beam was the highest ASU beam event score since 2007 and the 6th highest in program history. Emily White had a historic night competing in the all-around for just the 2nd time this season. The senior set a new career high of 39.625 and also scored a 9.95 on bars, beam, and floor, tying or setting career highs on all 3. Additionally, Jada Mangahas tallied a career high, tying 9.925 on bars. Hannah Scharf earned herself a pair of 9.925s, tying her season high on floor and setting a new one on beam. Heading into Pac-12 championships this weekend, ASU is ranked 21st. It will compete in the afternoon session against number 20 Stanford, 22 Arizona, and 27 Washington. All teams that the Gym Devils defeated during the regular season. Arizona State will look to carry its momentum from senior night into the weekend and hopefully for the Devils, the first round of NCAA regionals. Guys.
ASU women's golf destroyed the competition at the Dr. Donis Thompson Invitational this week, finishing an astounding 42 under par, 25 strokes better than the runner-ups Washington and UNC. The Sun Devils' 54-hole team total is the lowest in program history and 8th lowest in the NCAA record books. And their Monday round of 22 under par, good for another program record. Continuing forward with Olympic U, the Sand Devils look to contend for the coveted final Pac-12 crown. But it won't be easy. Here's Ratisha Thacker with this week's Impact.
The Pac-12 continues to be a power on the beach volleyball circuit and has been ever since it became the first major conference to sponsor the sport in 2016. 7 out of the top 20 teams are members of the Pac, while 7 out of the top 10 are West Coast based. Historically, the Pac has dominated, winning every national title. Dating back to 2016, USC holds 5 trophies, including the last 3, while UCLA has a pair. With the loss of the Pac-12 after this season, having a West Coast-dominated sport without a power conference leaves the question of what comes next. While the Big 12 announced their sanctioning of beach volleyball for the 2025 season, other major conferences such as the Big 10, SEC, and ACC have not. This means for teams like USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon, the Mountain Pacific Sports Federation will be their new sand home. The MPSF was created in 1992 and was designed to provide opportunities for traditionally non-revenue producing Olympic sports. As for the future of Arizona State, the 2025 Big 12 beach volleyball season will feature a lineup of only 4 teams: ASU, Arizona, Utah, and TCU. Although the Big 12 has not stated whether or not more teams will be added to this conference, they did note that participation numbers will be brought to levels that will allow the conference to qualify for national championship tournaments. While the conference that first backed the sport may be coming to its end, the Sand Devils will look to close out their tenure on a high note as they prepare for the final Pac-12 championships on April 24th to the 26th in Tempe.
Spring football is underway, and there is plenty to talk about with this year's squad. To do just that, we bring in our good friend Ben Paris, who is out at Mount America Stadium right now. And Ben, I think right now the biggest question everyone has is what is going on with Jaden Rashada and really the quarterback situation as a whole.
Yeah, Riley, it was reported yesterday that Jaden Rashada would miss spring football. He sustained an injury to his throwing thumb during the offseason. He was moving some boxes while trying to move into a new house. So they're going to let him rest up fully, which only leaves 2 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster: Sam Levitt, a transfer from Michigan State, and then, of course, Trenton Bourget, who will be a redshirt senior this season. But it also leaves room for Navi Broussard. He's going to be a freshman walk-on right here in the Valley, played his football at Liberty High School, won the Open Division State Championship, 2-time Gatorade Player of the Year. So they're really excited to give all 3 of those guys some reps. The offense is going to look 60 to 70% similar to what it was last season. So by the time they get to the fall and Rashada's all ready to go, all of their quarterbacks are going to have a lot of reps.
Yeah, hopefully Rashada can get healthy. But in this day and age in college football, Ben, with the transfer portal, the NIL situation, just where does ASU stand right now as we head into the spring?
Yeah, there's some big-time transfers that Kenny Dillingham is really excited to bring into the program. He talked about them yesterday. Cole Martin, he's a defensive back from Oregon, really excited about him. Obviously, Sam Levitt, the quarterback from Michigan State. And then they have Jake Smith and Xavier Alford, two guys that had their waivers denied last year when they transferred. So they're still transfer portal guys that haven't played yet for ASU. So they're all going to be all set, ready to go, and ready to suit up here in the spring and then again in the fall. And then Jordan Tyson as well, kind of another one of those transfer players. He played at the very end of last year after he got over his injury he sustained before he transferred from Colorado. So that's 5 guys that haven't really been in the lineup that transferred one way or another that they're really excited to get in. And what it came down to when Kenny Dillingham tried to get people out of the portal was, look, he wanted guys that would be multipliers, not dividers. He said there's only 2 types of people who multiply the people around them or divide. He didn't want any dividers, and he got some multipliers, which really speaks to the culture he's trying to build. He said he only wants players on his team that want to be here. The players that don't want to be here, he says he doesn't even try to convince them to stay, and he wishes them well and wants them to succeed in other places. In terms of the NIL progress, he said it's been unbelievable. But the thing is that ASU was so far behind a lot of other programs across the country that they now have to work twice as hard and able to keep up and stay in that NIL race, Riley.
All right, Ben, football season will be here before we know it, but thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully you can enjoy the weekend.
All right, thanks, Riley. We'll see you soon.
The Portalpalooza is back in session, and the Sun Devils have already felt the early side effects on the hardwood. Veteran guard and ASU's leading rebounder this season, Jemiah Neal, along with freshmen Braylon Green and Akil Watson, all entered the transfer portal this week, leaving Bobby Hurley with another element to navigate this offseason. On the women's side, former 5-star recruit Treasure Hunt and longtime Sun Devil staple scorer Jaden Simmons will be departing from Tempe for elsewhere.
If you've turned on your TV the past couple of days to watch March Madness and have been wondering where ASU is, well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. They aren't in it. However, there are some familiar faces in action, and ASU basketball is kind of like that ex who sees their girlfriend with a new man. To tell us the story of who those guys are that have found success on their new teams, here's Aiden Blank.
It was just a year ago that we were watching Bobby Hurley and Arizona State under the bright lights of March Madness. A lackluster season didn't get them back, but a few former Sun Devils are going back with their new teams. It's left fans reminiscing about the talent once in the desert. DJ Horn was a workhorse during his 3 years in maroon and gold. But after becoming the first Sun Devil to play over 1,000 minutes in a season since Remy Martin, he headed back to his home state of North Carolina and has joined the Cinderella squad from NC State as they shocked the college basketball world, winning 5 games in 5 days to take last week's ACC championship. DJ finished as a third-team all-conference selection and earned first-team all-tournament honors after dropping 29 in the championship and helping the Wolfpack reach the dance. Warren Washington and Devin Cambridge became a package in the portal, with both moving from the maroon and gold of Tempe to the scarlet and black of Texas Tech. The duo were just beginning to go before Devin suffered a season-ending injury in early December. Washington continued to play, shooting 62% from inside the arc before he too caught the injury bug. He was inactive for 6 consecutive games before returning in the first-round loss last night. Remember that guy? Well, that's the Pac-12 tournament from 2021, and that's the future New Mexico Lobo Jalen House. He spent 2 seasons at ASU before more than tripling his scoring average over the next 3 seasons, one state over. House averages nearly 30 minutes a game and even made some national headlines last week after leading his team to the Mountain West Championship.
Amazing, this is my first tournament ever. I don't even know how to feel right now. I'm so excited, man. I really don't know how to feel. I'm so excited, man.
If you're keeping track at home, there's 6 former Sun Devils in the biggest college basketball games of the year, all contributing in major ways. Bobby Hurley's have the talent, but the challenge, as it always seems to be, is how to keep it in the desert. For Cronkite Sports, I'm Aiden Blank.
Last week, my buddy Ben sat up here and discussed the dilemma between ASU success in Olympic sports versus quote-unquote revenue sports. Up until July 1st, 2021, the revenue generated from athletes' performances in larger sports had all gone toward funding facilities, coaching salaries, and helping subsidize the cost for those Olympic sports. But since that first day of July a few years back, we have seen the unprecedented evolution of name, image, and likeness deals, allowing athletes to get their own slice of the financial pie. ASU has been slow to adapt to this new NIL era, which has played part in the Sun Devils losing some of their top stars to other, more athletically modernized institutions. We all remember watching the video of Jaden Daniels' teammates trashing his locker after he hit the transfer portal. Now he could be the #1 pick in the NFL draft. Willie Bloomquist said ASU would be better off without former shortstop Luke Hill, another freshman sensation the Sun Devils lost to the SEC. Heck, flick on the biggest sporting event in the world right now, and you'll catch a glimpse of DJ Horn, Jalen House, Warren Washington, and Duke Brennan dancing in different uniforms. So here's the question that needs an answer. Does ASU want to bring its storied history into the modern age or continue to waste away into national irrelevance? We know what the fans want, but what does the administration? I guess we'll have to wait and see when they get a new AD. And that's the way it is. Time for some top plays. Let's head down to Tucson. ASU taking on Arizona in the Territorial Cup on the diamond. Here's Nick McLean chasing down the foul line, lays out the leather, and makes the snag. Sun Devils win the teacup.
Some acrobatics there from Nick McLean, but at number 3, we go to the gymnastics. Bars, beam, and floor. Emily White with a 9.95 on all 3 on her senior night. They got the big win over Southern Connecticut. Looks like a young Henry Dominy with all those flips there, Blake. Just absolutely effortless.
Completely effortless. And talk about effortless swings. Here we go to Club Farrington. We see Kayla Lissy go yard. Then the very next pitch, an Alicia Demby dinger to right center field. The Sun Devils would fall in the series, though, to Oregon State, losing 2 of 3.
See the bats there from the softball team. At number 1, though, it's Kian Vu in center field with the glove. He runs a country mile, dives, lays out completely Superman, and makes the grab. Take another look at this one as he travels a long way in center field. Unfortunately, though, ASU would need a few more of those catches, Blake, as they dropped the final game of that series 14-3, but a good weekend for them, and always fun, a good time here with you, here on the desk for everyone back in the control room. From all of us here, for Blake Neiman, I'm Riley Swenson. That's all the time we have today. We'll see you next week on another edition of Cronkite Sports Live.